Hey guys, my name is Andrew Thomas and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about what you need to get started recording professionally in your own home. So at the foundation of any studio, there's really 5 basic things. You need some sort of computer, you need an audio interface, you need some sort of headphones, you need a microphone, and you need a DAW, which I'll touch on later. So let's talk about this computer for a second. So for my studio, I've got a 2020 MacBook Pro with 16 gigs of RAM and a quad-core processor. Now, you don't need insane specs on a computer to get started. Honestly, most laptops you have around your house would work just fine. And I'm not going to go into the Windows or Mac debate. I'll save that for another video if you guys are interested. Just leave a comment if you'd be interested in that. But pretty much, just make sure it's not too slow. Workflow is really important when it comes to home recording, because recording, it's really a creative thing, just like playing guitar or singing or any really art form like that. A slow computer can really mess that up and slow down your creative process. Now, the next thing you're going to need is some sort of audio interface, which the one I started with was this Behringer Euphoria UMC 204 HD. Yeah, I know, mouthful, right? Your interface is what's going to convert any analog signals coming from either a microphone, a guitar, or what have you, and it's going to turn them into digital signals which the computer can read. Now, when you're looking at interfaces, there's a few things to consider. The first thing is how many inputs and outputs it has. Now, most of you guys are only going to need like 2 inputs and 2 outputs to start out. For example, you could be a singer-songwriter and you want to record something. You just need to record your vocal and an acoustic guitar or piano or whatever you play. So you're only going to really need 2 inputs at a time to get started. Now, the only exception I'd say is if you're a drum player, then you're going to need a lot more inputs. That's where you'd need something like what's back behind here, the Focusrite 18i20, because that is expandable up to 18 inputs and 20 outputs. So you can have plenty of microphones for your drum set. Now the other thing to consider, which is really going to drive the price, is going to be how good the mic preamps are in it. Now, this Behringer interface is kind of on the lower end of audio interfaces. I believe there's an even smaller one than this, that's UMC 202. But honestly, like even these Behringer interfaces are really good now, because they've got Midas preamps off of the old Midas consoles. Now, a step above this would be the Focusrite Scarlett 2i4, which has the Scarlett preamps, which are a little bit better than this. But if you're just getting started and you're on a really low budget, I'd say go for something like this. Still sounds really good, and honestly, most of the stuff you've heard from me in the past on Instagram has always been from this. Now, the next thing you're going to need is headphones. Now, here's where you can cheap out a little bit. I'm not going to say go buy some cheap pair of headphones from Walmart, but there's a lot of really great options for low budget. Like the ones I use are these Tascam TH-MX2s. They're 30 bucks. They're closed ear, so that way no audio comes from the speakers into the microphone when you're recording. And they work. Now, one thing you need to consider when buying microphones is, are they closed back or are they open? Personally, I prefer closed back because when you're recording, especially if you're recording to a click, you don't want that metronome to show up in your recording. And another thing to consider, and this is just for future reference, is the frequency response of your headphones. Now, these ones have a lot of low end to them, which is not really good for mixing. So that would just be something to consider, because starting out you're going to be doing all your mixing and production on headphones and not studio monitors. Alright, the fourth thing you're going to need is some sort of microphone. Now there's a few different types of microphones. You've got condenser microphones, dynamic microphones, and ribbon microphones. Now, you're not going to really have to worry about ribbon microphones because they're a very specific tool I wouldn't really consider using starting out, and they're a lot more expensive. But what I would look into is some sort of dynamic microphone or some sort of condenser microphone, depending on what you're recording. Once again, this is very subject to whether you want to record things like vocals and acoustic guitar versus a guitar amp or a snare drum. So dynamic microphones like the SM57 I have in the booth over there, or like the SM58 for vocals, they're very robust. They're not very sensitive. Overall, they tend to have a little bit less high end to them. Now, they do tend to run a little bit cheaper than condenser microphones, but these would be the microphones I would consider for guitar amps, for snare drums, and things of that matter that are going to be really loud. Now, condenser microphones, and large diaphragm condenser microphones especially tend to be a lot more sensitive, and they're great for vocals and acoustic instruments like an acoustic guitar or acoustic bass. So that is what I would really recommend starting out if you're going to be doing a lot of vocals and acoustic guitar. And you could put a condenser on a guitar amp and it would still sound really good. Overall, I'd say some sort of large diaphragm condenser is what you would want if you were just picking one microphone. Now, there's a lot of great budget microphones out there. There's MXL 990, which I have. The AT2020 is also a great one. I know AKG makes some great budget microphones. I would just look at some of those brands. Now, the last thing you're going to want to look into is some sort of digital audio workstation, or DAW. This is going to be the software you're going to use to record and to mix and master and produce everything. Now, there's a few different trains of thought that comes when you think about a DAW. There's Pro Tools, there's Ableton, there's Studio One, and there's what I use, which is Reaper. Now, Reaper has a 60-day free trial, and they don't terminate your software after it's over. But honestly, their licenses are really cheap compared to the other softwares. For just an at-home user license, it's $60. For a commercial license, it's $100, and that'll cover you for about a year. Overall, really good. Now, Pro Tools and Ableton especially are the more industry standard ones. That's the ones you're going to find in commercial studios and higher end home studios. And if you just want to go ahead and just bite the bullet and buy one of those, that would be a great choice as well, because then you would already know the software and don't have to worry about relearning any other software. My last talking point on a DAW, I would say, would be to just stick with whatever you choose. They all have the same functionality, which is going to be, they're going to be made up of tracks, which is going to be what you're going to use to record your different audio sources and layer recordings and such. Whatever DAW you choose, just make sure you stick with it, because once you learn it, you're going to be good to go. So now there is a sixth thing I would recommend if you have it in budget. I didn't put it on the list because it's definitely not required, but the sixth thing I would look into would be a pair of studio monitors. These are going to be the speakers with a flatter frequency response that you'd be able to use to produce, mix, and master your productions and songs. And they just give you a better frame of reference. So that's the 5 things that you need to get started recording professionally. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions about recording or have any ideas for any type of in-depth recording videos, tell me in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'd love to answer your questions. Love having these types of conversations. And if you're someone who already has been recording a little bit and you already know this stuff, leave a comment and give some advice for those who are just starting. I think it's really great when people with more experience can really help guide those just starting. So anyways, guys, make sure to hit subscribe and hit like. It really helps the channel and it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. And I will see you guys in the next video.